I have always been skeptical of ghosts and just the supernatural stuff in general. Ever since I was little, I have always believed that ghosts are not real, and that what people are seeing and reporting are just fragments of their imaginations, stuff that they didn't really see it well, but just thought that it was ghosts. Even as a grown-up, my thought didn't change. I was still a very skeptical guy, one who looked at everything from a logical mind. Any supernatural stuff that exists can be explained by science. I had always stood firm with that thought. One day, I was walking along a road watching the sunset, when I came upon a little boy, crying while sitting down at the curb. He was about 10 or so years, and since no one was there with him, I thought he was lost and got scared. I went up to him to ask if I could help him. He just looked up, shook his head at me, went back to staring down at the ground and cried again. He reminds me of my little brother, so I asked him if he wanted anything to drink. He said he wanted a slushie and had been craving for it for a while. There was a store 500 feet or so ahead of us, so I told him to follow me to the store. He just shook his head, saying he couldn't go anywhere else. I didn't think much of it, so I told him to wait while I went to buy it. When I reached the door of the store, I could still see him sitting down in the distance, so I went in. After I got the slushie and came out, I couldn't see him anymore. Feeling perplexed, I went back to his spot, but he was not there. I then thought maybe his parents just came and took him home. With that thought, I put him out of my mind and walked away. Almost 1 mile down the road, I came upon a poster with flowers around it on the grass next to the curb. Out of curiosity, I went up to read it, and it was talking about a little boy who passed away here. I then looked at the picture of the boy more clearly, and my heart skipped a beat. I rubbed my eyes in case I was just mistaken, but when I looked back, it was still as I saw it. It looked like the boy I saw a while back, who was sitting down crying. After the initial shock went away, I thought that maybe it was just someone who looked very similar. That was the only explanation that made sense, so it calmed me a bit down when I thought of it. I then looked at the face more carefully, and there was a little mole on the side of the boy's mouth. My heartbeat went up again, because I remember there being a mole at that exact spot on the little boy I saw. Feeling a bit chilled, I quickly walked home because it was getting dark. As I was a bit further away, I suddenly thought I heard a whisper. "Thank you." I snapped my head back to look at the direction of the poster, and realized I had left my slushie next to the poster. Instinctively, I bowed towards the direction of poster and walked home. I didn't go to that spot for about a month. One day, I decided to go back, but the poster was no longer there. Someone had removed it, and looking at the empty spot, for a second I was confused if everything here did actually happen, or did I just dream of it. I looked around and there was something sticking out of a bush near me. I went up to check it, and it was an empty slushie cup. Ever since that incident, even though I am still skeptical, I realized that maybe, just maybe, there really are things that science can't explain. I love to run daily to keep in shape. In fact, I do it every night at around 11 p.m. I like running at night because of the peace it gives me. It calms my mind and refreshes my memory for another day. It had always been my daily routine for years, until I experienced something while running that made me stop running so late. It was around 11 p.m. like always. I put on my shoes, plugged in my headphone, turned on my favorite music, and started the run. The run was steady and the pace was well. I was in my mood. There was no one around except for me. After a while, there was a turn right around the corner that led to a neighborhood that barely have any lights. The only light was the one from the moon. I didn't mind, because I have been through it hundreds and hundreds of times, and nothing out of the ordinary happened. I turned and went in that neighborhood, and then after a few seconds came upon a spot where there is no light at all, because of the trees above blocking everything out. I have never experienced anything at that spot before, but that night, when I reached it, I suddenly had a feeling that somehow something was up there looking down at me. I picked up my pace and sprint past it. A few feet ahead, all of a sudden I thought I heard someone call my name. I quickly came to a slow jog, took out my headphone, and looked around. There was no one. Nothing. Just complete silence, except for the occasional howling of the wind and the sound of my footsteps. I thought it was just my imagination or the wind, so I picked up my pace and started running again. As I was about to put on my headphone again to listen to my music, I noticed there was something weird going on, but for a second I couldn't put my finger on it. It then dwelled on me what it was. It was the sound of footsteps, like someone was running 20 or so feet behind me. I stopped, and the footsteps stopped. I began running, and then I could hear the footsteps again. It did not come near me, nor did it go any further back. It was just staying exactly 20 or so feet behind me, jogging at the same pace as I was. It didn't matter if I slowed down or ran faster. The footstep was always exactly behind me, the same distance, as if mocking me. It was very nerve-wracking. A few moments later, I turned back real quick. I didn't see anything, so I turned around and thought, okay, as long as it was just like this, I could handle it. But the moment I had that thought, as if it could read my mind, I could somehow feel whatever was behind me shift position. It suddenly was 10 feet behind me, jogging the same speed as I was. My heart dropped a beat, so I turned around real quick, didn't see anything, and turned around again, but this time, I could hear the footstep only 5 feet behind me. It suddenly dawned on me that whenever I looked back, the thing behind me would rush closer and closer. I decided to not look back anymore, and I just cut through another neighborhood to take a shortcut and ran as fast as I could home. The moment I reached my house, I could feel the footstep getting dimmer and dimmer, and then completely stopped. When I opened the door and about to go inside my house, I turned around real quick, and there it is. 20 feet away from me, there was a little girl, long hair, and wearing Hmong traditional clothes, just standing in the dark, staring at me. I quickly shut the door and locked it. Ever since then, I stopped running at night. My wife and I were looking for a house to buy. We saw one that we really liked in the Zillow website, so we contacted our realtor and asked him to show us the house. He said that he would be available tomorrow, so we made plan to meet at the house then. I went back to the pictures of the house, and the more I looked at it, the more I fell in love with it. It wasn't a big house, but just the overall visual was so homing. The outside was clean, and the inside was spotless as well. My wife also loved the house the more she stared at it. We talked about it all day long. Later on that day, a friend of ours came to visit us, and we started chatting about the house to him. I showed him the house, and I could see the smile on his face suddenly froze when he looked at it. Sensing something was off, I asked him why he reacted like that. He turned to look at me and said that the house looked familiar. He asked me for the address of the house, and then he called someone on his phone. After he hung up, he told me that the house in the picture was haunted, and he personally knew a guy who used to live there a couple of years ago. He told us that the guy who lived there saw a little girl multiple times in the house when he was alone. One night the guy woke up to the girl licking at his face in the dark. That terrified the guy so much that very soon after that, he and his wife moved out. After my friend finished the story, he told me not to buy it. I was a little skeptical of the story, so I told myself I would still check it out, since I love the house a lot based on the picture on the internet. The next day, my wife and I went to the house to meet with the realtor. When we went up to the house, it looked exactly like in the picture, pretty and clean. But somehow, It gave me a shiver when I began thinking of the story my friend told me. I didn't show my feeling to my wife, so I went in when the realtor opened the door. My wife began talking with the realtor while I told them I wanted to check out the house for a bit. I went from room to room, and there was nothing amiss. I began to take a breather, thinking that maybe what my friend said was just some rumors and not real. As I reached the bathroom and was about to turn back, I suddenly felt something wet on my face. I touched it, and it felt like saliva. I gave it a quick whiff and almost threw up because the smell of the saliva was horrible. I snapped my head back to the bathroom, and I could have sworn I saw a bunch of hair quickly moving to hide behind the shower curtain. I just started running back towards my wife and told the realtor, "Thanks, but we were done looking at the house and would call him again if we wanted to buy it." The realtor and my wife were very confused because of the tone of my voice. My wife thanked the realtor for his time, and we went home. During the ride back, I told my wife what happened, and she also freaked out. We decided not to make an offer for the house and just stopped looking for houses for a week or so because we were so shaken up.